Before our brain learns to use itself, that's to change its electromagnetic shape in such a way that the brain waves resulting from these changes make sense, it takes as much time as for our larynx and tongue, which need to learn to change its physical shape in such a way that the resulting sounds make a relay sense. And the brain learns its art on its own. I emphasize the whole brain. The whole brain, by changing its overall electromagnetic potential, is an indivisible emitter of the brain information. And the whole brain is, as I have emphasized it many times, its recipient. And certain areas of the brain have above average competences to do something with the information received. These are, for example, the areas responsible for muscle movement, feelings, seeing, hearing, and speaking. Not that we have come this far in deciphering the mystery of the brain transceiver. Let's take one more bold step. Let's try to understand how an electromagnetic brain wave can be born to carry out such complex notations as grammar-based sentence. Well, the human brain constantly, as long as possible, is able to learn new words, feelings, let's call them primal symbols. This learning consists in coding for each of the primal symbols, the only one assigned to each of them, electromagnetic wave emission made by the whole brain box. Yes, yes, each primitive symbol means different electromagnetic wave emission. Therefore, each primitive symbol corresponds to a different shape of the electromagnetic wave segment. We perceive these waves with our whole brain, but there are areas in the brain specialized in converting the received waves to activate the appropriate and strong enough muscles of the larynx and of the tongue, which results in the sonic naming of the primary symbol. Thus, each primal symbol that our brain meets will be encoded with unique wave characteristics in the form of only to that symbol assigned electromagnetic wave emission of the whole brain. Okay, but it seems that the mere fact that the brain can encode in the electromagnetic wave emission at least the whole vocabulary of words does not mean yet that they can make grammatically correct sentences, let alone a long, logically consistent argument. So how is it that the end result of the work of the brain, the logically consistent and grammatically correct sentences are? Well, this is the moment when we touch the truth about the psychotic nature of the brain work. Logical and grammatical procedures are completely foreign and imposed to the brain. The human brain doesn't produce any symbolic sequences, and even less any grammatical sequences. It can be said that it's natural for a symbolic brain emission to emit symbolic sequences more or less related to each other thematically, but not logically or grammatically. And that's all. I repeat, it can be said that it's natural for a symbolic brain emission to emit symbolic sequences more or less related to each other thematically, but not logically or grammatically. And that's all. The brain is not able to build grammatical, logical sentences from the very beginning of the symbol creating process. Oh no! The brain emits electromagnetic waves and makes only the necessary framework of the information encoded in the brain waves. Let me give you an example. If you want to say something about a house, then the brain wave emission corresponding to the primal symbol of the home is followed by the brain wave emissions encoding the already known to our brain primal symbols such as home, door, room, kitchen, garden, children, parents, etc. The more primal symbols our brain manages to learn in a given scope, the greater the range of primal symbols possible to emit with the brain waves emission. And so, one by one, our brain emits the waves corresponding to the symbols that it manages to trigger at any given moment from neurons specialized in reminding primal symbols, memory neurons. But such a brain expression would be almost completely incomprehensible to a listener, and our brain itself would not yet be able to understand what it is driving at, although it would trigger all the primal notions related to the word home. This is where the neurons specialized in building sentences turn on. Of course, these sentence generating neurons are not like these since their birth, and their ability to build sentences, especially logical sentences, takes a long learning process. There are big interpersonal differences in respect of this learning. Hence, there are interpersonal differences in the ability to build sentences. In any case, what is the most important about thinking as the product of the human brain is that this conceptual, ideological thinking is at the beginning of this process completely free from any grammatical or logical mechanisms. Interestingly, there are languages that are closer to such a natural, ideological, conceptual production of the brain than other languages. These are the oldest languages on earth, such as Chinese. It's characterized by the grammatical minimalism, and the sentences look as if they were created without the sentence generating neurons. On the other hand, modern European languages are characterized by an unusual, often artificially and unnecessarily inflated grammatical code of the sentence construction. It seems, therefore, that by the Chinese speakers, the time needed to express their thoughts is shorter, and the expressions do not suffer such aberrations in relation to the original thoughts as it's the case of the overly complex and grammatically bizarre modern European languages. We have behind us an important lecture on the nature of thoughts, feelings, execution intentions, in a word, the nature of the consciousness and its origin. As I wrote, as I say, the nature of the anxiety is identical as the nature of the consciousness, because the consciousness is a continuation of the anxiety. It is its perfected form. The appearance of the fear as anxiety, separated the animal apes from the pre-human apes forever. The latter became human only because of a strange phenomenon that began to happen in their brains. Here, in the pre-human apes, an inexplicable continuing, except during the sleep period, feeling of the inner restlessness appeared, a feeling without any objective external cause. Knowing the mechanism of the formation of sensations of the brain We know that such a constant feeling means the process of the continuous electromagnetic brain wave emission, which awakens, mobilizes, and makes all brain cells active. At the same time, according to their specialization, the brain cells will react to such a continuous brain wave emission, causing the increased muscle tension, the increased concentration of attention, the anxiety, etc. In the long run, it's unbearable, as unbearable as a steady, monotonous buzzing of a string emitting a sound would be. In this case, you have to pluck the string once, then another, and finally, instead of an unpleasant sound, a music will flow to please your ear. Well, the development of the brain towards the transition from the monotony of the anxiety to the richness and beauty of words, thoughts, and feelings played by the brain with its electromagnetic string was such a process. Of course, it wasn't easy. It took even tens of millions of years for the brain to master the extremely difficult art of such electromagnetic wave emissions by the brain box, so that the resulting brain waves were a precise marking of words, feelings, thoughts, and executive projects.